Hello world, Frida Reba Darcy and Patricia O'Connor here, and it's the Bonsai Balcony on a beautiful, this is going to be our Friday drop, and a couple of little quick notes to start off with. A little bit of a direction, I think, is starting to evolve. I had said in the last video that I had a few trees that were going to arrive via the shippers that I was excited about seeing. They have arrived, and I think I'm gonna place another order here very, very shortly. Maybe the last time I ordered trees, these guys came out of Florida, which I don't know that they needed to. I just picked a vendor based on a couple of things. One, the good news is there's no bad news. The good news is there's no bad news. My pine trees that I ordered on Etsy have arrived. Those, and they arrived as what they call plugs, which is to say tiny little root balls, but in this case they would have been root cubes. Root rectangles would have been more accurate, and they didn't come in pots, thus the name plugs. They were bundled together like an assortment of little hot tamales in wet newspaper, and then that was shrunk wrap. And when it took extra time for them to arrive, this being another one of them right here, this being another one of them right here, this being the first victim of some early wiring by me right here. So when they arrived a few days late. Florida kept them for like 4 days. Florida kept them, the ag inspector kept them to what was supposed to be just about their arrival date before they turned loose of them. So I was kind of skeptical as to what kind of trees I would be getting. And then they went to Chicago before they came here. But enough of all the fine detail work. This turned out they shorted me one. So this is 9 Japanese black pines for $70. Now, I have worked with this vendor before. I got this cypress tree, I believe, from them. And I might have gotten the maples from them. I have to double check that. I wasn't even aware at the time when I ordered these that it was the same vendor that I had used last time. But I've had but according to the app, I've had a good history with this vendor before. I could probably say, hey, you shorted me one, and make that up. But seeing how they came out of Florida, and seeing how Florida is in the middle, still not quite, I think, through with their hurricane. Ian, is it? We're just going to let that one tree slide. Maybe the ag people took it as a part of their thing. I'm not really sure. But, also I alluded a minute ago that there might be some sort of plan evolving. This table needs to evolve a little bit. I'm thinking about doing a little bit of rearrangement. I have space here that I'm not using, and I'm not overly anxious to. And space here that I'm not using, and space there that I'm not using. And part of the reason is in the past, trees that have sat there didn't do as well. The oaks love the rail. The Dawn Redwood likes the rail as long as it's close enough to the wall behind it that it blocks the western sun. If it's out here as far as this, it starts to get a little of that sundown orange, just comes beaming right through here, and it'll burn stuff even on the table. There's little rays of it's kind of weird to say that, but when the evening sun goes down and it gets really orange looking, it just casts a little beam of shadow through here. And stuff that are in that west facing sun sometimes get a little intense. The oaks don't seem to mind. The maple and the Dawn Redwood both did. That's why they're hugging that wall. And the damage was pretty easy to see because you could line up the light that was the beams that were kind of coming in between the buildings and casting light and shadow. You could see that the things that were in light were burning and the things that were in shadow were happy. So moving those two guys closer to the wall created a space here. Things that went there did not do as well and are also hard for me to water. But that is space that I have that I'm not using. So more things that are super hardy, like the oak, could definitely go in here. I don't think I should put the maples there. What I would also like to do is I would like this table to be a little bigger, though I don't see how it could be with the amount of space I have here. So perhaps I'll just raise it up on some blocks and put my watering cans over there close to the little elephant, and then that will allow me to use more of this as growing space. I could probably move this. Let's see. Yeah, the maples, I don't know. But what I'm getting at is my next thing after, now that I've gotten all of these little trees up and going, my next thing will be in the next day or so, probably tonight, when I'm watching TV, I'll order some soft pots, some little plastic, not the cloth soft pots, but the little vinyl soft pots. Like, wow, I have one floating around here I'm not using evidently because, anyway, the little plastic soft pots, I would like to order a few million of those. And then just every maybe every other paycheck or so is kind of what I'm thinking. Order another half a dozen or 10 or whatever more pine trees and just keep them rolling. I want to do a lot more learning about them. I've also been watching something here recently. As a YouTube creator, I will quite often pitch other YouTube creators. You know, it's kind of like, what are you reading here lately, Pat? Well, lately what I've been watching is Bonsai IQ. It's out of Japan. You have to make sure for me, I don't speak a word of Japanese, so I have to make sure the translation is on and up to speed. And even then, some of it is a little funny, but for the most part, I find these guys to be really good, really informative. And I haven't been really watching so much their juniper work as much as I've been watching their pine work. They'll take tiny little pines like our guys here, and I'm learning so much about bending. Whereas whenever I bend something, it seems to be long swoops. They get these beautiful shapes that I would just be terrified to make out of their tiny little pines. And so watching them, I feel like it's kind of helping me along. And I'm kind of trying to watch their hand movements a little bit to see how they get away with such drastic hard bends. And you know, they'll take a little pine tree seedling like this, maybe twice that big and a third as big around. So it would be something like that in a soft pot. And it would just have the trunk that would look basically like the pattern of a twisted river or something. It would just fold back on itself, back and forth and back and forth. And it's just so, I love it. I've seen people complain about what's natural and what's not natural, but I have seen trees that looked pretty twisted, sticking out of the sides of canyons. They get smacked on and they get broken, but not broken off, and then heal, and then all the other stuff that happens, or they get weighted down by snow, or just the sun setting at a slightly different degree every afternoon will cause a tree to try to turn like a satellite dish to face the setting sun, and that will cause them to just kind of every day rock themselves around a little more. But I'm really enjoying watching there, so I'm kind of going to give those guys a little plug. and there's a lot of talented people in there. Also, I've said before, I watch in Japan, Kimi Bonsai. She is excellent with show hands and mames and stuff like that, and I really enjoy her work. And what's odd is they must be close together, because from time to time she strolls through on one of their videos when she's mostly filming from her house, so it's not like some big operation, you know, is visiting another big operation. She comes in with her handbag and her little mask on, like she's shopping or whatever, and it's just kind of ties into a community a little bit that's way away from anything I know, but that's what makes interesting. That's what makes learning from them even more interesting for me. So the short story long, I want to raise this table up to where I can make great use of that light. These guys have been in a box in the dark for a long time. Their color is already better, having just been out of the dang box for 2 days. And we're gonna let them hang out like that in their little milk cartons. But I need more space here. I could probably have maybe this much area. Let's say the same amount of, yeah, I can't come through here with a tree, but I can come through there with it. So this table, or a table like it, could be this long by that wide. And I could have some trays all the way out to here with probably, you know, done correctly, that could be 100 trees. So that's just a few orders away. But at the time, so what I would like to do is increase the amount of pine trees that I have, so that I'm constantly bringing along pine trees, and I have numbers to work with. I don't want to say I have numbers to lose, because I don't like losing. I'm not cheap. I just look at it as living things. I look at non-living things like living things. It comes from having growing up at a time when your mom would read you stories about little fire trucks that could, or little tugboats that could. I just have empathy for, so if it's alive, I damn sure don't want to see anything happen to it. I assume that it wants to be alive and to not die. I don't assume that it's not conscious. So that's kind of my approach to stuff. And yeah, I could really step this up. These could be a whole bunch of those little soft containers. I have already started getting some larger trays that will hold those, kind of like what my guy was raised in when I got it. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. More pines, more learning about, more pines to learn with, more pines to border, give away, trade, whatever. And just increasing my numbers, I think, will increase my ability to learn about them and see what works and what doesn't work, and what I need to learn and what I don't need to learn, and what all of that good stuff. I think I will fix that by diving into it more, and I look forward to it. My other pines are doing well. They're really doing well. I'm seeing a little yellow at the top. I've been noticing that for a couple of weeks. Right after we had our 90-degree spell, the very top of this tree got a little yellow. It seems to be coming out of it. But when you have those days like that, you just sit back and watch for a few weeks and hope you got away with it. We did. We just wanted a little yellow to go away and everything to be fine. Our ponderosas are looking pretty good. You might have noticed I'm holding this. One thing that held me up when my trees got here, the few pots that I did have laying around, I checked and I allowed myself to run out of screen for my pots. This is plastic vinyl screen, same thing you use. It's not aluminum, but it's plastic vinyl, which is a lot of times what we use to cover the holes. It's pretty soft. I have seen the screen that people use for the bottom to cover bonsai holes be a little stiffer, But this was the gauge I wanted, and here's what. I'm holding this for a reason. I didn't pay the per foot price for this. Most hardware stores, instead of buying a little package of those little squares, and they're not much, but the problem is you then turn around and you don't have some. So because I worked at a hardware store, but because sometimes you're going to go to a hardware store, this could be your solution too. If the hardware store makes screens for customers, there's probably a container somewhere where they have scraps, ends. So that's where they throw pieces that are too big to throw away, but then they are not likely to be a screen size that they make. This is not a likely screen size. I picked the smallest piece in there that actually was a fairly thick roll, and simply asked the manager. I said, I use these for the bottom of bonsai pots. How much for this remnant? Now, as an employee there, I don't think my price, I don't think the price I got was any different than the price you would get. I don't think the guy is going to want to get in trouble giving me an extra buddy deal if he's asked how much he sold this to me. And my price for this was $5. This will probably last me a couple of years. So if you were a customer at a hardware store and they made screens, you might consider asking an employee if they have screen remnants, because you only need tiny little squares, but you would like to buy remnant, and then it wouldn't be up to the person who necessarily works the floor to make that call. But if the person that was working the floor knew where to go for it and then could introduce you to their manager, that person could make a call and say something like, yep, $5, with a shrug, and you go, heck yeah, $5 to not have to worry about screen for a couple of years. Sold. So I did that as a person who worked at the hardware store. I think had I been a customer there who hadn't irritated anybody in the last 10 minutes, I probably could have gotten that same deal. In other words, I didn't pull any rank to get that. It wasn't the kind of thing I would pull rank to get a sweet deal on. I wouldn't have expected it to be so much that I would ask for some super sweet deal. But so I think my deal on this would have probably been about the same as yours had you walked up to my manager and said, how much? And I went, well, and this normally goes for something a foot. This would, if I measured that out, that would probably be a foot wide by a couple of feet. So that would have a number higher than 5. So that was just something that was kind of cool. I thought I would pass along, but then that allowed me to pot up my little trees. Speaking of little trees, we'll do, so this was my $50 no holler little pine, little Japanese black pine. And I love the way it has good motion coming right out of the bottom of the pot, right? So, as opposed to this one that got potted up last night, no wire yet. It's just doing its little thing, being a little pine tree. I don't have a screen in the bottom of it either. I could pour that out with almost, and then redo it, because I'm sure no roots have had a chance to escape that little root cube yet. This is the one I put wire to, and my game has to improve a little. The wire was hugging the trunk when it came out of the ground, but as I put bends to the wire, it moved away from the trunk. So I got a pretty okay little spiral to that. But my attempt to get the trunk to make some good motion, see if I were to, this should be over there by those 2 wires. And rather than conform to that shape, it just slid away from it to make a shape that it found easier to do. So, okay on the motion, not the best. It's early enough in the game to where we can let it grow a little bit more girth. It can get a little thicker. Let me find the dang tree. Where is the tree? We can let it get a little thicker, and then I can do that again. But yeah, you see this big hoop there in the wire and in the trunk. They separated there while I was trying to bend the tree into this shape. And I figured rather than just manhandle the teetotal crud out of it, I would hold it there and let us recover, because after all, these guys just did come in the mail. I just wanted to put a little shape in it while I had it in the pot. What I didn't succeed on is exactly what I set up. Well, I kind of did. We get some shape this way. It comes out of the pot and takes a direction, which is what I was trying to do all along. It was more drastic than that, and I kind of have to even turn it the right way to let you see that there is a direction, but we're not coming straight up out of the ground and then doing nothing. So that's good. So anyway, I look forward to doing a whole lot more of these. I look forward to organizing this better and organizing it on a need to be basis. This cypress could probably be up there. Maybe this wisteria could be on the corner, and I could better make use of that space. I could take that lemon cypress probably and bring it over to the corner or over here. It wouldn't mind being anywhere in there, but if I clear out more space here, that'll give me more room for, I love the little tray idea. This is really upped my game when it comes to the little trees. Having them in some substrate down there keeps the pots cooler. It gives the roots a chance to escape out of the bottom. My small tree game success rate went way up once I started doing this. So to that end, we're going to keep that going. We're going to try to increase this grow area and make more space for more trees, and we're going to increase the number of small trees by a bunch, which will give us more stuff to work on and more stuff to do. It will be a little bit more pine flavored, but in between time, we still have our huge bald cypress trees. We still have our oak trees, and we still have our forests. So actually, the most trees I have would still be maples. Between the trident maple, 1, and the Kodaheim maple forest, 19. So that puts me at 20 maples, with 9 new Japanese black pine seedlings on top of the 8 other pine trees I have. They would come in second place at 17. Not all of those are black pine. 2 of those pine trees are ponderosas, like Hondo, the Pondo here, and the one I call Haas, which just a little quick look at Haas. It's continuing to push out buds tonight while I watch Nerd TV. I might clean out a few more of these older needles, but it's on the same regiment that the big one is. I feed it year round, and I give it as much water as it could possibly take and no more, and take and be happy and thrive, not overwatered. And we're doing that to increase the needle count, which will ultimately at some point make for smaller needles, because it can either make a lot of needles or it can make a few big needles, but it can't do both. And so we're gonna swap that for a lot of needles, because that also adds to the health and the vigor of the tree, and adds to the amount of years that this tree can thrive and be healthy without being leaned on too hard. And then when we get long runs of shorter needles, we can snip those back to a more desirable literati waspiness, and then just kind of start that whole process over again, and that's how they'll keep the needles small on those guys. The Japanese black pines, there are dozens upon dozens of videos that will teach you about decandling and thinning of needles to keep the tree. Black pines are kind of like teenagers. They want to be bigger than they are. They will shed their ankles because that's their lowest part, not realizing that they need their ankles to survive. It's just like, well, that's the lowest part of me. We'll just get rid of that. We'll keep reaching upwards. And that's a little bit, that's kind of why we treat them the way we do. We have to do things to make sure that it stays interested in this part of the tree, or it will cast it away. Failure to learn that. We have to thin out the needles in other places so that the thinner places on the tree will not be seen as secondary. It'll see the need to keep all of it happy and flourishing. So we have to balance out the energy because it will not. It would rather just be a taller tree. So that has kind of got us momentarily caught up on the Bonsai Balcony. We'll do another little spot on the weekend or two, and like and subscribe if you guys have not already. We're starting to see some fall colors on the trees, and it'll be nice to watch. It'll be nice to as I pick Patricia hair off the bald cypress, making them, in fact, bald cypress. It'll be nice to watch the bald cypresses do their orange, rusty colors that they make. Sometimes almost salmon-y colors that they make in the fall. And sometime after that, when it drops all of its stuff and we're not getting any more goodie out of all the fronds and needles, which is going to be a little ways yet. We usually get some nice days in fall, but when it's finally dropped all that, we'll be able to make some decisions on branches, and then the branches that we're keeping on the 3 bald cypresses here, we can prune those back for ramification and wait for spring to allow them to push out more. We've got all of our main trunks are working for us, trying to cover up our marks. This is the last one. I cut back one that came all the way out to here in favor of one that was closer in. So this one is literally 2 years behind the rest of them and bringing up the rear. That's okay. We got a lot of good rollover in here because of the work that happened here. We just got a shoot this past spring that was ideally located, kind of like this one was. And we said if that one sticks around long enough to get a couple of inches to it, we're going to start pruning back the bigger one, in which is we did that by midsummer. We started just chopping it back until about a month ago. I went ahead and cleared it all back, making this the new total apex of the tree. And that was also about the time they slowed down. I haven't seen a huge amount of growth since then, but that's quite all right. There's more to come. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and Frida appreciates you. And like I said, we will be doing another drop before the weekend is up. And this weather has just been so very nice. It's probably going to get up to about 80. There's a few people out by the pool. Haven't really started hitting the water yet. It's just kind of a slow, sleepy day. But yeah, thank you so much for watching.